My next patron question is from Joey, who wants to know which movie utilizing classic cartoon characters I prefer. Which of these two movies do you think is better, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle or Looney Tunes Back in Action? Both of these are hybrid comedies based on intellectual properties that are also self-aware, fourth-wall breaking gag fests. Both movies also got mixed reviews from critics and audiences, although both were praised for staying true to their source materials. It is interesting noting the similarities between these two films. In addition to what Joey mentioned, these are films shepherded by people with a genuine desire to see the characters properly represented on screen. Rocky and Bullwinkle is a huge passion project for Robert De Niro, who is a fan of the original Jay Ward cartoons and wanted to play fearless leader. Back in Action was directed by Joe Dante, who has always been heavily influenced by the Looney Tunes and wanted to pay tribute to one of his heroes, Chuck Jones, with this movie. There's a heavy self-referential element to both films, which does help elevate them a tad. This is most evident in Back in Action during the first act, when the characters are running around the Warner Brothers lot, and there are moments, like in the cafeteria scene, where the cartoon characters discuss how they're perceived by the public. Later on, you have scenes like one that comments on the forced Walmart product placement. Dante has said he did not have the best time making the movie, as the studio executives were constantly breathing down his neck and kept wanting to change jokes around even after the animation had already begun. With that said, I still think a lot of its trademark sense of humor made it into the movie. Rocky and Bullwinkle also includes a lot of self-aware humor, with my favorite gag coming from Bullwinkle wanting to go to a commercial break in the real world and then asking if they're on PBS. The thing with this movie is the jokes can get corny, especially the frequent puns spouted by Bullwinkle. However, that's probably the point, as shown by Rocky sighing and rolling his eyes. Some of the pop culture references can be a bit much though. There's a scene where a fearless leader recites the "Are you talking to me" bit from Taxi Driver, because Rob De Niro was in that movie. I saw Rocky and Bullwinkle in the theater as a child, and that joke went right over me. I had not started watching Scorsese movies at that age yet, so you'll have to forgive me. However, now that I do understand what that scene is referencing, it just comes across as strange and rather forced. Speaking of the live-action actors, they do understand what kind of movie they're in. In Back in Action, Brendan Fraser and Jenna Elfman are decent sounding off boards for the cartoon characters. Steve Martin also goes all out in playing the head of Acme. Meanwhile, De Niro, Jason Alexander, and Rene Russo nailed the Pennsylvania villains in Rocky and Bullwinkle. Piper Perabo is an okay lead as Karen Sympathy, although making her fangirl of the show is a clever touch. However, as soon as she lets the moose and squirrel into the real world, her importance in the plot diminishes. Looking at the cartoon characters at the center of these films, I've always liked how Daffy Duck's personality and relationship to Bugs is explored. In-universe, he's often been overshadowed and not treated with the same respect as his rabbit companion slash foil. His jealousy has been a major component of his personality for so long, and this digs deep into that. The sentimental moments click because of not only our fondness for Daffy, but the way Bugs talks about him too. Rocky and Bullwinkle don't have the same level of depth in their movie, but they're a likable presence. I'm not exactly asking for major character development from these two. Then again, I don't ask that from Bugs or Daffy either, even though I consider Daffy one of the most impressively developed animated characters in history. Animation-wise, Eric Goldberg did a great job of tackling the Looney Tunes, with a scene at the Louvre serving as a highlight. The crew of Rocky and Bullwinkle did have a tricky task of taking these flat characters and bringing them to 3 dimensions with the technology available at the time. They went for this approach of making them 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional at the same time, and it's a decent effect. One can almost say this was the precursor to what films like the Peanuts movie and Into the Spider-Verse accomplished several years later. Joe Dante brought a zippy energy to Looney Tunes Back in Action, and it gave solid enough arcs to the characters. Rocky and Bullwinkle does have a bit more trouble sustaining the runtime. The point of Jay Ward cartoons is they were fast in their plotting, which was part of their appeal, and it's hard to capture that when you're stretching these characters out to a feature-length story. You could say the same about the Looney Tunes, but Dante technically had prior experience when making a Looney Tunes type movie, as Gremlins 2 has the humor and wackiness we associate with those cartoons. It even literally opens with Bugs and Daffy. So I do prefer Looney Tunes Back in Action over The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I think the characters are better realized and the jokes have a better hit ratio. Bullwinkle still has its moments though. Now let me know in the comments which movie you prefer, and thank you for your question, Joey.